Good morning. We are looking at geometric mean part 2 today. And what it means in reference to right triangles. Okay, so the geometric mean altitude theorem says that the length of the altitude, remember that is the up and down piece, the height, that's the altitude, is the geometric mean of the lengths of the two segments. Okay, so the geometric mean of these two segments here. Okay, so here's what that means. In this case, BD squared, so the altitude, so altitude squared equals AD times DC. So equals the two lengths multiplied. Okay, so look at number 8. Here's our altitude. Okay, that is labeled as x. So altitude squared equals our two lengths times each other. So 8 times 12. Okay, 8 times 12 is 96. So x squared equals 96. And to get rid of the squared, because you got to get x by itself, you take the square root. The square root of 96. Okay, because that square root cancels out the square. Okay, so we need to simplify 96. I know that 3 goes into 96 32 times. I know that 2 goes into 32 16 times, and then I know that will separate into a pair of 4s. So I need my pair. My pair comes out. There's nothing outside. Okay, and then 3 and 2 are alone, so they have to stay home, and we're going to multiply them. So 3 times 2 is 6. So 4 root 6 is the geometric mean, which gives us the actual length of the altitude, okay, which will help us later. All right, number 9. Now this one sets it up just a little differently because it gives us the whole length and then one of the little pieces. So if you know the whole length and you know one of the little pieces, or you know the little piece, you can find this section by doing 37 minus 5, which is 32. Okay, so here's what that does. Our altitude, which is x, we're going to do altitude squared, so x squared equals our two smaller pieces, so 5 times 32 multiplied together. Okay, 32 times 5 is 160, so x squared equals 160. Okay, now to get that x by itself, we take the square root, which is going to cancel that squared, so x equals the square root of 160. And then you need to simplify. I know that 160 is 2 times 80. I know that is 2 times 40. That is 2 times 20. And that is 2 times 10. And that is 2 times 5. Now, you could have done it a different way, probably easier, quicker. But I like to do it with prime numbers. So I'm going to find my pairs now. I got a 2. Another pair of 2s. And then my 5 and my 2 are alone, so they stay home. So we're going to multiply outside and inside. Outside is 4, inside is root 10. So x is 4 root 10. Okay, let's look at the last two. All right, this one, it's giving us the altitude. So our altitude squared equals our two small pieces that runs into it. So x times 15, which is just 15x. So 15x equals 18 squared. So we need to know what 18 squared is. That is 324. And then to solve for x, you divide by 15, which is something you should know. Okay, so 324 divided by 15 is 21.6. Okay, so that gives us the side length instead of the altitude. Okay? Okay, now this one sets it up differently again. Okay, now pay close attention to what happens here. Let's just make this y. Okay, because we don't know what the actual number is, so we're going to make it y. So we know that 21 is our altitude, so our altitude squared equals our two pieces, 30 times y. Okay, so 21 squared is 441, and that equals 30y. So to get y by itself, you divide by 30. Okay, so y equals 14.7. Now, it wasn't asking for y. We made up y. That's what y is. So if y equals 14.7, and this piece equals 30, to find x, which is what we're looking for, we're going to add 30 plus 14.7, which is 44.7. Okay, so we did the same thing on every one. We set it up the same way. They just work differently. There were numbers in different places. Okay, now let's look at the geometry mean leg theorem. Okay, this says that the length of a leg of the triangle is the geometric mean of the lengths of the hypotenuse and the segment of the hypotenuse adjacent to the leg. Now that's a lot of words. So let's look at this. This means AB squared. So this leg is the geometric mean of the lengths of the hypotenuse, so AD, and the segment of the hypotenuse adjacent to the leg. AC. Okay, this also means that BC squared, so if we're doing the other leg, BC squared equals DC, so this one times the other piece, so the long piece, AC. Okay, so let's look at number 12. We are trying to find this side length. Okay, so since that's what we're trying to find, we're going to square it because we're finding the geometric mean, and then we're going to set it equal to 24 times the whole thing, which is 26, because 24 plus 2. Okay, so be careful there. So x squared equals 24 times 26, which is 624. Find the square root of that. Those cancel. And the square root of 624, you need to simplify all of that. Okay, so I know 2 goes into it. So 624 divided by 2 is 312. I know 2 goes into that. It's 156. I know 2 goes into that. $78 times, and I know 2 goes into that. 39 times. Okay, and I know 3 goes into that 13 times. Okay, so I've got it all simplified out, or multiplied out. I'm going to circle my pairs, and then I got a 3 and a 13 that are alone, so they stay home. So 2 comes out from this pair, 2 comes out from this pair, and then 3 and a 13 stay. Okay, so that gives us 4 root 39 when we multiply. Alright, let's look at the next one. We are trying to find x. So x squared equals the piece of the triangle that is there, okay, in the same triangle, which is what we did here. We used the piece of the triangle that was there, 24, times the whole bottom. Okay, the base of that triangle times the base of the whole thing. Okay, the way I found 5 is I did 12 minus 7. Okay, so 5 and then times the whole thing. So x squared equals 60. Take the square root, which cancels that, and you get x equals, you're going to simplify 60 by 3 and 20. 2 and 10, 2 and 5. Okay, I'm doing that fast because you should be good at it by now. So x equals 2 comes out, and 3 times 5 stays in. So you should get 2 root 15. Okay, now 14, 15 are going to be a little longer because we are looking for x, y, and z. Okay, so first thing I know I can do is I know I can find this y because I have 2 other side lengths. So I can use the Pythagorean theorem. This is my hypotenuse, so it's got to be c. I'm going to make this a and yb. So I got 24 squared plus y squared equals 27 squared. Okay, 24 squared is 576. And we don't know what y squared is, and 27 squared is 729. So we can subtract 576, and we get y squared equals 29 minus 576, 153. Okay, now that's not going to simplify when we take the square root, so I'm just going to use a decimal 12.4 for the sake of plugging in for the next part. So y is 12.4. Okay. Okay, now we can use the leg theorem with 27. So 27 squared, and this is going to give us x equals the base of the triangle that has the 27 in it, so 24, times the whole thing, which is x. Okay, so 27 squared, we've already found out, is 729, and that equals 24x. So we divide by 24 to find x. So x equals 729 divided by 24, 30.375. So I'm just going to use 30.4. Okay, so we know that the whole thing is 30.4, which tells me that this is 30.4 minus 24. 30.4 minus 24 is 6.4. So I know that this piece here is 6.4. So that's going to be useful in finding z. So to find z, we use z squared equals what we just did for this triangle, we're going to do for this triangle. That our base, so 6.4, times the big base, 30.4. Okay, so z squared equals 6.4 times 30.4, which is 194.56. And then we're going to square root that, and we're going to get a decimal. It's going to give us 13.9. Okay, that's a lot. So let's try again. All right, I can find y very easily by the Pythagorean theorem because this makes a right triangle. And so this is going to be my c because my hypotenuse. So I'll make that a and b. So 20 squared plus 8 squared equals y squared. 20 squared is 400. 8 squared is 64. Alright, I swapped sides there, but that doesn't change anything. Okay, so y squared equals 464, and I don't know how it changed colors, but I'm going to square root it. Okay, so that's going to give me a decimal of 21.5. Now, I'm using decimals here because they're easier to work with when I'm plugging into somewhere else. So this is 21.5. Okay, so now I can use what I know to find what I don't know. Okay, so let's find z. Actually, let's find x. Alright, so let's find x. If we are finding x, we can say altitude squared equals the two bases, 20 times x. Okay, that comes from our geometric mean altitude theorem. So altitude squared equals our 2 bases. Okay, so that's 64 equals 20x. Divide by 20. I believe that's going to be 3.2. So 64 divided by 20 is 3.2. So x is 3.2. Okay, so if x is 3.2, that means that whole thing is 23.2. And that will help us find z. So we're going to say now z squared equals the base of that triangle, 3.2, times the base of the whole thing, which is 23.2. Now I need to write that in a different color. Okay, so z squared equals 74.24, and then square root it to get a decimal, 8.6. Okay, we're going to do more practice on that. I know that was a lot, especially the last two. The rest of them aren't too bad. The last two is a lot, so we're going to look at that. We'll look at that more tomorrow. Have a great day.